if we want to modify an existing image or create a new image based on an existing image, we need to create a new Docker file. To showcase this scenario, I will create a new HTML page, and I want to have that HTML page hosted inside an nginx container. The index.html file already exists, so what I need to do now is create a new Docker file, and we will just give it a name Docker file. Luckily, IntelliJ has support for Docker files, so I can start typing any keywords which are supported in Docker files, and IntelliJ allows me to use autocompletion. It also supports autocompletion for image names, so I can use nginx as a base image. I can list myself as a maintainer for that image. And what I need to do now is copy my index.html file to the appropriate directory inside the nginx image. For that, I use the copy command, and because the Docker file and the index file are in the same directory, I can just use a relative path, which is also navigatable by using Control-click. User share nginx, HTML is the default location with the site configuration for nginx, so that's where I want to place my index.html file. If you don't remember what the keyword actually does or how it is used, you can use Control-Q for quick documentation. That way you can see some basic documentation, or even click the link to the online documentation to read more about individual keywords here in the Docker file. It is also recommended to use a Docker ignore file, which is similar to git ignore. Let's assume we have that 1 GB file inside our website folder, but we don't want to upload that file as part of our build context, because that would take up a lot of bandwidth and increases the build time for the Docker image. So what we can do is create a new file called Docker ignore, and inside that Docker ignore file we can get rid of any temporary files that we do not want as part of our build context. Note that when you create a new file with an extension that is not supported by IntelliJ, but for which a plugin is available, IntelliJ shows you this little hint over here. So if you want, you can install the ignore plugin, which supports Docker ignore and many other ignore files, to have better support and integration for these kind of ignore files. Now back to our Docker file. In order to create a new image based on this Docker file, what we can do is click on the run icon here in the gutter on the left side and say we want to build that image on Docker, so on our Docker daemon. After the build has run, the image is now available in our images section. However, the image does not have a name here at the moment. So we might want to create an image tag, which is nginx custom, for example. Now the build was rerun, but because nothing has changed inside the Docker file, the cache was used, and additionally we tagged the image, so now it is available as nginx custom here in our local image registry. We could now use that image and create a new container to run that new image as a container, but we can also directly run this Docker file here from the dialog with run website Docker file. And because we didn't specify a name with this run, it now gets a randomly generated name, in my case silly column, and we can see the properties, the environment variables, and also the port bindings. So this is a small shortcoming here. When we use the run on Docker gutter icon, then it doesn't prompt us for any additional details and properties. What happened in the background is that a new run configuration was created. We can now see it at the top over here, and we can edit that run configuration just like any other run configuration that is used in IntelliJ. This allows us to modify the port bindings, so we can now specify the port bindings like we did before and say that the host port 9000 should be bound to the container port 80. If we do that and apply the changes, basically rerunning our Docker file. Now with that changes, we can open localhost 9000 again, and this time we get served our custom index.html file that we added inside our Docker file with the copy command.